What made you write a book on the life myth?
I like the question. Basically, in my studies of psychology and process work and the different experiences I've had and different therapists, I had this one really short session, like 20, 30 minutes with Arnie Mindell, founder of Process Work. And in it, we explored my earliest childhood dream. It was actually a repetitive, kind of a nightmare. And through my associations with the different parts of the dream, Arnie suggested this kind of overarching pattern of my life. And it was like these different, experiences and struggles that I've had, throughout life and actually gifts, they all kind of came into focus. But when I started studying process work, I realized, oh, we were working on my life myth. And that session has been and continues to be so helpful, that framing, that understanding of this overarching pattern, this overarching dream of life, if you will, has been super, super helpful. And then working with clients over the years, I almost invariably try to get to their mythic patterns as well, because whether they're in organizational work or, they're having struggles in a marriage or family life, that mythic stuff tends to be kind of pervasively influential for better and for worse. That's
Mm.
why.
And I'm curious because what we're going to learn in the class that you're going to do, because it's just a short 2 hours.
Just a short
And
two
this
hours.
sounds like something that you worked on for a long time, like over
I,
years.
I did. And so, yeah, I don't like to overpromise things. So I think we were just talking about that. But in a way, it's in 2 hours, I think what's, kind of reasonable in my mind is to kind of talk about what the life myth is,
Hmm.
its potential importance and meaning, and how we can start to approach it. And I was thinking of, creating a simple exercise where people, they might not necessarily grasp the life myth, because I don't think it's so easy to necessarily grasp something that's basically a dream. Yeah.
Mm.
But if we can start to approach that main dream of life, the life myth is arguably our main dream of life, that may be a really great step. And that's the step I'm going to try to move towards. And then maybe if we have a demonstration with a few people, maybe we'll get lucky and people will maybe start to grasp that main dream, which can be really, really exciting.
What's one of the skills you think is most important for us when we're working on our life myth?
Yeah, good question. There's probably different ones. I mean, openness, having an open mind. But frankly, I think that the skill that's the most important when grasping, the life myth or frankly any dream is symbolic thinking, which is in
Mm.
contrast to like linear or logical or rational thinking. The symbolic thinking is basically the language of dreams. And I'll
Mm.
talk a little bit about that in the presentation. I think that's the main thing that can help us contact and grasp and make meaning of our life myths and our early dreams, for example.
Mm. When you say symbolic thinking, are these symbols, are they very personal, like things that maybe might have a personal meaning to us, or are they
Yeah,
cultural, or
yeah.
do you see them as
Could,
a
could
sort
be,
of a
could be,
combination, or?
yeah, could be both. Could be personal. Could be cultural. Like last night, I had a funny
Hmm.
dream. I dreamt of a cat who I guess sensed that there was little, residue of food on my lips, or maybe just like the scent of food, and started licking my lips. And finally,
Hmm.
I had to like get the cat. But then I was thinking, rationally, I couldn't get very far with that dream. But if I was thinking symbolically, I was thinking, some part that's a little bit like I think about cats as being a little bit unruly. Like I think
Hmm.
about, for example, in contrast with dogs, I think dogs being a little bit more servile, obedient. Dogs a
Right.
little bit more doing their own thing, that
Hmm.
somehow is not shy to really go for and really get all the little bits of something that it's attracted to.
Yeah,
Choosing symbolic to think, how is that me? And then I realized, oh,
it's great.
yesterday in class I was teaching and I felt like I
Hmm.
was doing that a little bit. I was going for all these little tasty bits of what students were saying and just pursuing them a little bit, pursuing a little bit, licking, if you will, a little bit to find that little nugget,
Interesting.
that little jewel, that little bit of wisdom, etc. And
Mm.
that was using symbolic thinking. Am I absolutely confident that that's the meaning of that dream? No. But if I was going to guess, my
Hmm.
best guess, uses symbolic thinking. You think, how is that process emerging in my life? That thing that wants to get that little bit of juicy, tasty wisdom, et cetera, in a given interaction or classroom setting, et cetera.
Mm. I
little
think
example.
from the little I know of you from classes I've taken, I think that makes a lot of sense because you're just very good at subtle details and picking up small, small things. So
Thank you. That's a
yeah,
really nice reflection.
and that's really neat. So I'm gonna see, I'd love to ask you a couple questions about you so
Yeah,
people could get to know you. So
yeah,
how do
yeah.
you like to spend your time?
Geez. Well, lately I'm such a wimp when it comes to cold. I try to stay warm.
And it's the winter here. You're
California,
around,
yeah,
yeah.
near San Francisco.
Hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, up until lately, I was spending a lot of time outdoors in my backyard playing around with acrylic paints
Mm.
and learning how
Oh,
to, utilize acrylic paints and different techniques to create, kind of wonderful little, images. Let's see. Oh, here's one
wow.
right here.
Oh, neat.
It's one of my earlier pieces.
Oh, amazing. Oh, wow. Oh, I
Yeah.
love the
Yeah, so
love
that's I've been
art.
spending a fair amount of time
That's
kind of
fun.
studying. I mean, there's thousands of videos on YouTube around acrylic flow art. Yeah,
Hmm.
so
And
that's one
techniques.
way.
And is there anything about your life myth that you would be willing to share?
Oh yeah, let's see. I'll say more probably in the presentation, but I think briefly what I'd say is my life myth points to some of the chronic challenges and difficulty I face, and I'll say more
Hmm.
about that in the presentation. But it
Mm,
also suggests a solution, which is one of the exciting things about our mythic processes,
mm,
is that sometimes, not infrequently, yes, they include our most difficult challenge, but they
hmm.
often also indicate a main power, quality, or solution that may be,
Mm,
nestled right next to that problem. And I'd say that the solution that's suggested in my myth is one of transcendence,
mm.
spiritual transcendence. Yeah,
Wow,
I would say that. And again,
that's amazing.
that framing, that suggestion both resonated for me and has proved repeatedly over years and years and years relevant, meaningful, and helpful.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That sounds
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Is it actually, it makes me wonder how is it possible for us to work on our life myth and kind of figure out what it is to a point that it's helpful on our own? Or do you think it's something you're
Yeah.
better off working with other people or?
That's a great question. Again, I'm tempted to think I think it relies on one's relationship and ability to utilize symbolic thinking. And I think
Hmm.
some people are naturally inclined to think that way. I
Hmm.
think for many of us, myself included, it's been something to learn, something to cultivate because it wasn't, especially like growing up here in the US in the West, it's not
Hmm.
a kind of thinking that has really been overtly supported.
Hmm.
So I'd say that if a person has some tendency to be able to think symbolically, be able to see that what happens here
Hmm.
is also happening there, maybe not literally, but
Hmm.
through symbolic thinking, that kind of person may do well exploring their own myth by themselves.
Mm, that sounds good.
But if you're like me and a lot of people who may not be so adept at that kind of thinking, sometimes a little bit of some friendly support, someone who can look at your process from the outside can be helpful.
Mm. That's what I found. It's been, and I've looked at it so many times. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to going back, doing it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what inspires you? What makes you want to get up in the morning?
Oh, wow, what a question. Yeah, I was thinking of that. Obviously, you wrote that question to me earlier. I was thinking about it,
Yeah.
and I had a little, it's partly a joke, but it's also true. The first way I'd say is what helps me stay in bed in the morning is thinking about my dreams, especially if I can remember a little bit of my dream. That's what helps
Hmm.
me stay in bed in the morning
Hmm.
because I'm thinking, what was that dream? And then if I remember, what was that dream about? And then just really going into the dream. Like I stayed in bed some this morning thinking about that dream of that cat licking my lips.
Mm, that's
But really, I think
great.
that what gets me out of bed, usually I think it's my work day.
Right. I like though how you're just you're like, no, it sounds like what's most important to you is what makes you stay in bed in the morning. That's so great. And it really seems
When it's cold
perfect.
out, I don't want to get up and face the cold house.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's been fun talking to you, Catherine.